By looking at the percent change of the Dow Jones closing values over each of the presidents starting in 1913 with Woodrow Wilson, we see some trends. In general, presidents between the ages 52 and 56 show lower Dow Jones production through their presidential term. Next, we compare the inflation rates between each of these presidents' terms. Between the ages 52 and 56, the president with the lowest inflation rate was Warren Harding. For Dow Jones percent change, President Bush was the most successful in this age group. Finally, for unemployment rate, Lyndon Johnson had the lowest percentage.
With the information Kaiser provided, there is a complication in the bracket. A three-way tie is found among Lyndon Johnson, who won the lowest unemployment, George Bush, who surprisingly won the best Dow Jones, and Warren Harding, who won the lowest inflation change. Judging a tie, we look back and see who had the most second places to see who had an overall better success with the economy. There lies another problem, because they each placed second in another graph. To decide which of these three is the champion of Region 2, there is a simple answer. Which one looks best in a suit? A. Lyndon Johnson, B. Warren Harding, or C. George Bush. By a unanimous vote, George Bush is declared the champion of Region 2. This interesting graph details the Dow Jones returns of the presidents in the age bracket 56 through 61, which is Region 3. Truman beats out the competition completely, taking first place with an increase of almost 80%. On the other side of the spectrum is Nixon, whose policies seem to have trashed the stock market. Truman almost had the win in the inflation contest as well, but Woodrow Wilson pulled ahead slightly with a sub-25% inflation rate. In the unemployment bracket, Truman wins by a small amount. However, the unemployment data for his area was not reliable and was not readily available, and so Woodrow Wilson was omitted from this graph. It is obvious Harry Truman is the champion of 56 through 61. He won both the Dow Jones and the unemployment. However, if it wasn't for the lack of data available, Woodrow Wilson could have taken the victory. And so, Truman advances to become the champion of Region 3.
In bracket 4, the age group is 62 years of age and older at inauguration. The presidents are Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. The first graph is for 62 years of age and older for the Dow Jones average finishes. The graph presented shows the Dow Jones industrial averages. The trend of the three presidents in the given time frame either supports the conclusion that the older the president, the worse the Dow Jones industrial averages, or that there is no correlation. The higher the points of the average finishes, the more successful they are. As you can see, Bush had the highest Dow Jones average, then Eisenhower, and then last came Reagan. However, this only involves three presidents. The second graph for the 62 and over bracket is the inflation rate averages for each president. The graph for inflation rates also supports that the older the president, the worse off the inflation rates are. The higher the rates, the less successful they are, based on the chart. However, we must also keep in mind that the economy often moves in cycles, and much of the inflation rates also depend upon other factors, such as global changes in economic currency values. For this graph, Reagan had the highest inflation rate, then Bush, and then Eisenhower. For the third graph, of 62 years of age and older, we did unemployment rates and their averages. For the unemployment rates, it shows that the older the president out of the three, the worse the unemployment rate is. Again, Reagan had the highest unemployment rate, followed by Bush, and Eisenhower had the lowest. And as you know, the higher the rates, the less successful the president, so this would just prove that Eisenhower was more successful in this area of economic growth.
Although Pump was missing a graph that represents the data for Dow Jones, his data was valid. Dwight Eisenhower won inflation and unemployment, while George H.W. Bush won the Dow Jones. Reagan didn't win around, but keep in mind the inflation rate is factored into the Dow Jones average, which is beyond the president's control. Finally, Eisenhower becomes our Region 4 champion.
By looking at our 4 champions, it is obvious that there is no clear correlation between age and presidential ability as based on economy. The true ability of a president to support a nation is made clear in this diverse set of champions of each age bracket. During the 2008 election, many protests were raised over how young President Obama is or how old Senator McCain is. Many were worried about this issue. However, it is obvious that the age is not a factor in presidential success as much as ambition, drive, intelligence, charisma, and how good they look in a suit.
Future predictions. Here's a graph relating the president's age at inauguration to the number of president they were. For example, George Washington was 57 when inaugurated and was the first president of the United States. As we look closely at the graph, a simple yet astonishing trend can be found. Slowly, the age of the president has been decreasing at a steady rate. With this in mind, we can predict the age of the future presidents will gradually continue to lower.